Hello and welcome to this eye tutorial, and I want to focus this time on the eye that is looking upwards and looking to the side, because I want to explain something about the iris. The iris is a rounded shape upon the eyeball itself, and it is kind of like a donut with a little hole inside, and that hole is an open hole that goes inside the eyeball to capture the light and reflect it on the back of our eyeball. In that way we can see. We can divide colors and shades, light and dark. But the actual iris, and you can see that perfectly in the eye that is tilted upwards. The iris is a rounded shape upon the round ball, which is the eyeball. Now here you can see that the iris is actually pushing the eyelid upwards. And you can also see the thickness of the flesh of the upper eyelid. Now the eyelashes come out of the second line that goes around the eye. The iris itself is always of different color, of course, than the actual white of the eyeball. So I simply give this a gray value, and now I want to see how round the iris is. And you can see that the shape of the eye is pushed up because of that iris. The white of the eyeball isn't all white. There are a little bit of shadows going on there. So I also push in a little bit of the charcoal pigments inside the eyeball. Now for the lower eyelid, you cannot see the second line because the eye is moving upwards, but you can just see the eyelashes tipping over the edge, and it's quite a straight line. Now to achieve a little bit of a realistic effect, you can push in the charcoal pigments with a pastel knife. Should you want to see the whole process, where I explain a lot more about how the eye is built up, then you can find that on my Patreon page. Here you can see the light that is casted upon the iris itself. Now let's look at the eye that is looking to the right. You can see that the contour lines of the eye are now quite different, because the roundness of the iris pushes the flesh in a direction, and that alters the shape of the eye. You can see that the iris is now all the way down into the right corner. It is pushed into the right corner, and it shapes the form of the eye in a different way than the middle eye that we first drew, the eye that was looking up. You can see the pupil, which is that little hole inside the iris, and you can see the upper eyelid. What you can also see is the direction of the eyelashes, of course, and I always try to think rounded. The iris is sitting like half a ball upon the actual ball, which is the eyeball. On the right corner, you can see the thickness of the flesh, and the eyelashes come out of the second line of that thickness of the flesh. The eyelashes are not straight, but they are in kind of a curve. So I try to draw them curved, coming out of the second line around the eyeball. Now the iris again has a different color than the white of the eye, so I give this a gray shadow too. For the lower eyelid, you can also see the thickness of the flesh. Inside the iris itself, there are different shades of gray. And there's also a light flesh upon the iris itself. Doing eye studies are very, very good for you to draw. You are pushing yourself to look very close at the eye and make your own study out of it. Always think round and try to look as good as you can at the different shadows that are around the eye and inside the eye. Also remember that the iris itself is half a ball which sits upon the eyeball. So double round. And because of the fact that the iris is rounded, there also can be flares of light upon the roundness of the iris. Here you can see the little hole inside the iris. This is where the light comes in. And this is the top layer of the iris, which can catch a lot of light. You can also, erase a little bit of the lights upon the eyelid itself or in between the eyelashes, and make your study as realistic as possible. But in the meantime, you are simply pushing yourself to watch very closely at the eye. You're thinking round and you're trying to make as realistic as possible an eye. Always remember the thickness of the flesh and that the eyelashes come out of the second line that is around the eye. You can see the great difference between the eye looking up and the eye looking to the right. You can see also the little muscles inside the donut, which is the iris. So I'll try to draw that too, just to remember me and to push me to think of the iris as a donut. I hope you enjoyed this video, and should you want to see the whole video, then you can find that on my Patreon page. You're very welcome to join me there. Thank you for watching, and take care.